Hey, what's going on, everyone? Justin here, and in this video, I just want to share all the books that I was able to finish in February. This was a great reading month for me, probably the best I've had in like 2 years. I had a little bit of downtime, plus it's northern Maine, winter. That's why my face is so red, if you're wondering too. Wind has been like 30 miles an hour today. I think 10 degrees, like blown snow, everything like that. And I was outside, so just while we're talking about that. But it's a good chance to stay inside a lot of times and get some reading done and everything like that. So let's just go ahead and get started. I'm going to start with some buddy reads. I think I had three. I did another one, but I didn't quite finish the book. But anyway, so the three that I did finish. First up, from my philosophy Discord, this was a book that several people had chosen to read, and I joined in as well. And it's St. Augustine's Confessions. Not gonna lie, when I was going into it, I thought this was just gonna be like, like I don't know. I've always just had like a bad feeling about Augustine, just from like the other stuff I've like heard about it and everything. But I think it actually panned out pretty well. I think it's a little light on like the true confessions and that kind of thing, but I kind of went into it as sort of reading it more as like a historical document. So this was written late 300s. I think it was around 380, 390. CE or so, but nothing really in the ancient classical world really compares to it as far as being like kind of a an autobiography of sorts, where he is talking about like kind of personal things, kind of like just deep just musings and philosophical thoughts and guilt and some confessions and everything like that. And there was a little bit of philosophical stuff kind of going in there as well. The discussion got, especially in the first half of the book or so, was probably like the biggest I guess discussion as far as a group read that I've ever been a part of. So that was actually really cool to see. So I'm gonna be looking forward to the next philosophy I guess read that we're gonna do as like a big group and everything. But like I said, I definitely would recommend it for people, even if you're not a believer or anything like that. I still think you'll get stuff out of it. I know I did. So like I said, better than I thought it was going to be. Like I said, I thought I was just going into it, like I had to read parts of City of God from like in college and stuff, and I thought it was going to be like the same type of thing for some reason. But yeah, he was a professor of rhetoric, and that definitely shows in the writing. Like he definitely had a way with words. He knew how to write. So I thought that was pretty interesting as well. So next up, we have a Historathon group read. I'm going to leave links to all the Discords and things like that. Historathon, I'm a co-host where we read just history stuff all year long. This was another big group read that several of us wanted to read during February, and I think into March, a few of us. But not gonna lie, I felt this one was a little bit of like navel gazing at points. It's essentially a history of the whole concept of liberalism during kind of the last 200 years or so. Whereas the book is mostly focusing on kind of the German and the French iterations of liberalism, which I think a lot of times when people think of like true like political liberalism. It's dealing a lot with more like kind of the British and then kind of American shoots of it. It starts off with kind of like liberalism throughout basically antiquity through the Middle Ages and stuff, and then that's maybe like one big chapter or so, and then the rest of the book is dealing with starting with like kind of the French Revolution and going on through that. But yeah, liberalism was a very slippery ideology. It changed 180 degrees about like 5 times over the past 2 centuries and things. So I thought I thought it was interesting, I guess, from like almost like an etymological standpoint, kind of like the changing in meaning of words and everything. But I feel like so many different factions were involved that most of them didn't agree on it, even like during the same context, the same setting and everything. Like I don't know, I just felt like I didn't feel like I got in. Maybe if I was like more into I guess historical politics and everything. I will say I did enjoy the sections on kind of Bismarck having to deal with liberalism and kind of the concessions and compromises that liberals had to make with basically the Iron Chancellor and stuff. So I thought that was pretty interesting. My takeaway here is just kind of just like this offshoot like throwaway. I want to say like throwaway comment, but we're talking about like Caesarism and Napoleonism. As Napoleon's kind of trying to conquer most of Europe and stuff. they have kind of like the French liberal ideas going on, and people are kind of going, well, can you really be like super liberal if you're like building an empire? And then you also hear about like the American version of that and the British version from like the late 1800s during like the heyday of like imperialism and stuff as well, and how some people like, you know, tie themselves in knots to basically say, yes, it is compatible. So, you know, they're talking about, you know, Napoleon taking over these other places and stuff. So debates took place across Europe about what constituted a true liberal man as opposed to a false one. Could one be liberal and a Napoleonist at the same time? An Italian dictionary reminded people that being liberal meant displaying generosity, benevolence, and the love of freedom. And in politics, it meant the support of constitutional government. So, like, that's what I'm just going with there and that kind of thing. But you'll have to just read the book because, like I said, there's about, I'd say, a dozen different iterations and definitions of what being liberal meant at different points in times and in what countries you're actually discussing liberalism in as well. Next up was the group read for the Oxford Very Short Introductions that I've been doing once per month in my philosophy Discord and stuff. This month is Epicureanism by Catherine Wilson. Technically, this is not like the Oxford Very Short Introduction edition, but it's the same text. I think it's just, this was like the original, and then they kind of just like repurposed it or something for the Oxford Very Short Introductions. I really actually like this one quite a bit. Obviously, you know, just dealing with kind of the thoughts of Plato and everything. I love how she didn't get into the weeds too much. A lot of times I've read stuff on Plato and it's kind of, you know, where does the historical Socrates and the historical Plato, like, you know, what divides them and stuff in his like dialogues and that kind of thing. And she goes into it just enough to kind of let you know, that's like a thing. But doesn't spend all the time like kind of dealing with kind of the, I guess, not such essential stuff. And you get a bunch of different kind of breakdowns of a few of the dialogues and that kind of thing. And I don't know, like I said, I thought it was a really good primer. I don't know how much you get out of it if you've read a lot of Plato already, but I think it's definitely a good introduction for those who want to start like kind of getting into like reading some of his dialogues, but have never done anything before, just to kind of, like I said, just to kind of get you ready for kind of what to expect, what to be thinking about like as you're reading them. Next up, let's do some history books. So the first one here, we got Augustus by Anthony Everett, The Life of Rome's First Emperor. I thought this was pretty good. I definitely feel it's definitely in like Anthony Everett style. Like it's not, you know, it's not a home run per se, but it's definitely just a really good, solid kind of narrative biography. He's got a few. I think I've also read his Hadrian. He's probably most famous for Cicero, which I've read both of those. I do feel like my favorite one of him was still The Rise of Athens. So I guess I probably should do The Rise of Rome as well. I think he wrote. But anyways, if you've never read anything about, you know, Octavian, you know, becoming Augustus, Rome's first emperor, this is definitely a great starting point. I think this is definitely, you know, like this is great. Like I said, almost kind of like the last book. This is a great primer for someone like not super knowledgeable on the topic at hand. So we're kind of dealing with. I do enjoy how the book spent about half, at least half. It might have been a little bit more than half, dealing with his time, you know, as Octavian, kind of growing up, and then dealing with the civil war against Mark Antony. That does not get glossed over in any way, shape, or form. So I thought that was pretty good. If you have read a lot about the fall of the Republic or the beginning of the empire and stuff with Rome, not sure how much you'll get out of this one either, but like I said, it's just a really good kind of solid narrative biography. This one was pretty interesting, so I want to thank Pegasus Books for sending it to me. I will be doing some book reviews. I'm going to start bringing those back to the channel. This will be one. So let me know. I got like 3 different options right now that I'll probably do. Let me know down in the comments which one you're going to want first. So anyways, this is El Cid, The Life and Afterlife of a Medieval Mercenary by Nora Beren. And this was super fascinating. I've like heard of the legend of El Cid. I think I might have read the poem in school or something. It sounds like vaguely familiar, but wasn't like always ringing a lot of bells and stuff as I was reading it. But anyways, this is all about the first couple of chapters deal with the historical, I guess, knowledge that we do know about El Cid, and even that's kind of like, yeah, like there's a lot of caveats, even just in the historical narrative, just because we're dealing with the 11th century in medieval Spain. You know, it's just not a lot to go on sometimes, unfortunately. But the majority of the book is kind of dealing with how El Cid, as a symbol and as a figure, and how his like story has been repurposed for tons and tons and tons of different people throughout time. For example, monasteries that were kind of associated with his life, obviously trying to use, like relics and, props and things from El Cid's life to kind of, and not necessarily, I guess, just props, like, I guess associations with, being born in that village or something like that. Kind of trying to boost their stature in that way. But a lot of it is more of the politicking down through the centuries in Spain, most notably probably with the Spanish Civil War, and then Francisco Franco's regime afterwards. Kind of just like, yeah, like I said, just forcing El Cid to fit their narrative, and to kind of pigeonholing them into what they wanted him to be. The thing is, El Cid was quite complex. Like, my big takeaway here is, El Cid kind of was a terrible, like, vassal, considering he broke away from his, like, liege lord effectively in the medieval, this is, like, during the High Middle Ages and stuff. Not super great, but he did kind of have his own chivalric code that he kind of adhered to and that kind of thing, which is pretty cool. But, he's a Christian fighting with Christians against Muslims. Yeah, he fought with Muslims against Christians. He fought with Christians against Christians and fought with Muslims against Muslims. So he's just, this is like during the time period, where you have the Moors in Spain and everything like that. So, like I said, just a lot more complicated than, just kind of like that famous movie with, what was his name? Was it Charles Heston? I think it was. They kind of go into details with like different dramas and poems and literature and plays and everything like that, in movies that have used El Cid as well. So I thought that was really cool, kind of being like almost like a historiographical kind of thing for the afterlife of El Cid. Really fascinating stuff. Next up, we have The British Are Coming, The War for America, Lexington to Princeton by Rick Atkinson. And this was actually really good. I haven't read much on the American Civil War, but this was, I think, 700 pages of text or so. Maybe not quite that much. About 600 pages of text, if you don't count like all the notes and stuff, which I did kind of stop reading after about like 50 or 60 pages in. There was just too much stuff kind of going on there. But it definitely held my attention. And military histories are generally not like my thing, really. But I did kind of want to learn a little bit more about the American Revolution. And I was sent the second volume, which is The Fate of the Day by Crown. But I wanted to read this one first, just so I had like the context for the second book. And then there's gonna be a third book later on. Rick Atkinson's probably most famous for his he wrote a trilogy on like the last couple of years of World War II. Does it say? No, it just says The Guns at Last. I forgot. I think it was called I don't know what it was. The Liberation Trilogy. I think it was the Liberation of Europe Trilogy or something like that. And this, like I said, I'm probably going to read all three of these ones once they're out. Like I said, there was a few things I didn't know about the American Civil War that I did pick up in here. But more importantly, there's a couple of people that I need to look into now. Most notably, Charles Lee, who was just a complete character of a general and stuff. I just need to learn more about him. I think there has to be more like politicking with George Washington. I still haven't quite figured out how he was able to hold on to power, like become like the commander-in-chief so easily, as well as basically like retain that power when other generals like Lee and stuff and several other like factions were kind of going, we probably should like kind of get rid of him. He's not like doing the greatest, guys. But yeah, like for example, the siege and conquest of New York. I don't know how anyone stays in charge after that like debacle. I just need to get a book just on the fall of New York City. And like I said, so I kind of like books that make me think about things that I've never really thought about before, and want me to kind of go down some other rabbit holes. But definitely check it out if you're into American history or early, American Revolutionary stuff. That'd be one for sure. One more that kind of is like historical-ish that Crown had sent me as well. So thank you to them for that. Was One Nation Under Guns: How Gun Culture Distorts Our History Threatens Our Democracy by Dominique Erdős. Not gonna lie, this was not my favorite book. It just not a whole lot was like super convincing. I did learn a few like tidbits and things, like how in especially the first like 40, 50, 60 years of the 1900s here, the majority of the population was like super like anti-gun and just like kind of was like, you know, whatever, if guns get like taken away, that kind of makes sense and stuff. And everyone kind of like expected it. And then there was like one instance like after like JFK's assassination and stuff, where there might have been like a chance to like kind of do it, and it just like never happened. And then that was kind of just like the end of that historically. But yeah, like just a lot of the stuff was kind of either just common sense stuff, maybe not common sense, but you kind of just like already know or have assumptions towards. I don't feel like I learned a whole lot. And I don't know if it's just because too, I'm in like super pro firearm country. So I've like heard like a zillion arguments for like everything under the sun. I just don't feel like this would convince anyone that, you know, guns should be taken away and stuff. So I don't know. I don't know. It's just me. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you about that one. All right. And lastly, I wanted to read a bunch of science books for my Bio Blitz, which is like kind of like a reading event for the science reading challenge that I'm doing. And the first up, we got When the Earth Was Green: Plants, Animals, and Evolution's Greatest Romance by Riley Black. And I actually really enjoyed this one. Thank you to St. Martin's Press for sending me this. I thought this was just fantastic for the most part. There's only one caveat I'm going to put at the end here, but yeah, this is definitely one I'm going to be probably reviewing in depth and a little bit as well. And one thing, it's all about different ecosystems that throughout the entire history of the planet, once plants start kind of getting involved and everything. So it's really fun. Like, you don't learn just about kind of the big obvious ones, you know, like for example, like the Cretaceous one, like during like the heyday of the dinosaurs and that kind of stuff, in the Carboniferous period with the kind of weird palm tree type plants and everything, but you get tons like historically. And I love how she didn't just put in like the obvious ones, like for example, like when we have like the fall of the dinosaurs, right, you know, 65 million years ago. She actually doesn't put it in like right there. There's a kind of a big gap. I think it was like 10 or 15 million years before what the setting kind of was like, and then like 10 or 15 million, or maybe not quite that much, but some afterwards too. So it's not like right there on the big obvious one, you know, we're going to like throw that in there just because a lot of people always put that like little setting as well. So you get tons of different stuff, and then you get a good balance of like the plant ecosystems and animal ecosystems and ecologies and stuff. Just thought it was really cool. Like one of the ones was the earlier what am I thinking of, like tigers and like saber cats and stuff getting high on catnip, and how that sort of like came about and stuff. That's something I never thought of. I just thought that was just really cool, really interesting. Thoroughly enjoyed that. Now the only really caveat I have is there's a big like appendix section at the end of the book, and in that appendix section, the author kind of goes into like why they put in all, you know, the details that they did. Like I picked, you know, these species for plants and animals because of the X, Y, and Z. And I felt like a lot of that information probably could have been incorporated like into the text somehow. Just because the appendice here, wow, if I could turn like to the right page for whatever reason, it was about, yeah, like 60 pages or so, you know, and it's only like a 300-page book or somewhere along those lines. So I feel like maybe the appendice could have been cut down to maybe like a third, and a lot of that information just kind of like incorporated into the text somehow. It does make sense like as you read it, because maybe it like would break the flow of the narrative a little bit, because there is like certain reasons why the author did pick certain things and stuff. But I don't know, it just felt like a little weird reading the book and then reading another like 50-60 pages of like reasons why the examples were used. I don't know. It was just it wasn't like necessarily bad. It was just kind of like odd. I don't know. I feel like I've said I don't know like a zillion times in this video. Next up, we have one of my favorite authors. It's Bernd Heinrich's White Feathers: The Nesting Lives of Tree Swallows. Not gonna lie, this was kind of a weird. This was definitely the weirdest Bernd Heinrich book that I think I've read. And unfortunately, out of I think the 5 or 6, this is probably definitely like the lowest one. But while interesting, it's all, you learn tons about tree swallows, and he had a bunch of, what he did was over the course of like 5, 6, 7 seasons, fledgling seasons, he tracked and recorded everything in his like naturalist notebooks and stuff. And he's like a hardcore professional, uber awesome, hardcore scientist and stuff. And I do love him too because he lives in like rural woods of Maine and stuff, which is like my exact context. So anyways, he, is detailing everything, like, and like, for example, when some of them are feeding, he's recording on average, how long it takes in seconds and minutes between like each feeding of the chicks and stuff over the course of a whole like day, things like that. So you learn tons of tidbits on how like swallows like actually like kind of behave, how they like live their lives, how the fledging process even works, loss of clutches, loss of eggs, how that happens, different circumstances, this, that, and the other thing. But the thing is, it really almost reads like, it doesn't I guess it doesn't read like you're reading like his notes, but like his notes are like gotta be like half the book, as far as like that. It just didn't feel like there was like a super big grand narrative kind of associated with it. There's a little bit of a thread that kind of runs through it all, but like I said, it just felt like kind of reading like a narrative version of his notes over like 6 or 7 years on this topic. So I'm not 100% sure who the audience for this like would be. If you're not like super into birds, well, granted, you probably wouldn't pick up a book about tree swallows if you're not super into birds. But like I said, it's just, like I said, it was definitely the weirdest one. It's still a good book. I'd still say it's above average, but just very odd. So yeah, I guess this February month, I read a lot, but yeah, I guess I was picking a lot of like kind of middle of the road. However, this one was not a middle of the road one. This one's The Darkness Manifesto on Light Pollution, Night Ecology, and the Ancient Rhythms that Sustain Life by Johann Eckloff. This was definitely an awesome book. It's all about, as it says on the tin there, light pollution and night ecology. And I think this is my first book, other than maybe one on, I'm pretty sure, what it was, like fireflies. And it's basically on like night ecology, and I thought that was really cool. And he focuses on, there's like, I think 40-ish vignettes. Are they labeled? No, they're not labeled. I want to say, yeah, there's probably like 36 vignettes, little short like clips almost, that he kind of incorporates to show different situations, in the dark, in the night, in caves, in the nighttime woods, whatever it is, different ecosystems and different like habitats and behaviors of different organisms, and what they're doing and why, preserving the night and the darkness is really important for these creatures. And I liked how it wasn't just like the obvious ones, like fireflies, for example, bats and moths and different plants, for example, are incorporated as well. Different cave organisms a couple of times, as well as humans kind of adapting to night culture. We have artificial light on more often, how it messes up our like sleep cycle and circadian rhythms. Everything like that. I just thought this one was super fascinating. Great title, great cover, great topic, great writing. Awesome. And then lastly, I did listen to an audiobook, and it was Catachin Devils by Justin Woolley, if I remember correctly. And this is a Warhammer book. I thought this one was actually pretty good. Half of it is from like the Imperial Guard's perspective. Most notably, the Catachin Jungle Fighters are incorporated. Obviously, based on the title and stuff, for those who know Warhammer. And then the other half is you get some orcish point of view, but not just a regular orc, a commando orc who wants to actually, lead some commandos and be stealthy and use tactics and stuff, which is very un-orky for the most part and everything. But I thought it was really well done. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And there you have it. Those are the 11 books that I finished in February. Let me know which ones you want me to see, do some reviews and everything like that. Like I said, I want to start incorporating those into the channel again. I used to do tons of them and just haven't done a whole lot recently for whatever reason, but we start bringing those back as well. Let me know what your favorite book that you finished in February was, and always remember, whatever you read in March, read victoriously.